Anita, how do you do it? What are they paintings?
I consider them to be paintings, yes, absolutely. I use an airbrush, and it's like a tool. It's like any other tool. It's like a paintbrush, only instead of using a paintbrush and painting on the surface, I spray the surface. So, yeah, I would consider them to be paintings, absolutely. What I do is I mask out all the areas that I want to airbrush, or all the areas I don't want to airbrush. It depends. So what I do is cut out the mask, the piece I want, then I lay it onto the paper, then I cut it out with the scalpel and peel away the area that I'm going to have painted. And once the area is exposed, then I'll use the airbrush to colour that area. And you do this lots of times until you build up a picture. I usually do the lines right at the very end. Either I outline the pieces that I've airbrushed or I add lines to it. Again, on this one, has both. These are obviously very faint lines, and then a lot of these images are outlined with a black, very fine black pen. So it takes a lot of control to ensure that the black lines are encircle the actual airbrushed area that you want, and also that once created they're pretty much there and they're permanent, yeah. You can hardly tell which is painted and which is airbrushed, except on big areas. And this is a very typical airbrushed look, because you can see the gradation. You can't ever achieve that with a paintbrush. This small area here is applied with a paintbrush, and that's pretty evident because you couldn't get that with an airbrush. So I do use both.
Are you trying to communicate anything specifically to me by these paintings?
For me, the story is that well, that we are here for a time in our lives, and what we do with that time is important for ourselves and for the universe at large. So I try. Let me tell you about an experience I had when I was very young. I was actually 3 months old when it was as though the light switch was switched on. And I awoke knowing that I had arrived. And I remember thinking about it so clearly. I remember thinking, I've arrived. I'm thinking about it like I'm talking to you right now. And my first impression of having arrived was one of texture, colour and form. And it was this incredible cacophony of those three elements that were so prevalent to me at that moment. And so my images do tell a story. They tell a story of the journey that, for instance, this one here is called Getting There. And for me, this tells me about going back home, wherever home is. It's beautiful little characters that children would draw, and it's whatever the universe holds for us. It's about going back home. But I want my images, my work to relate to all sorts of people. I want them to relate to children and also to people who are no longer children, so that everybody can identify with them.